Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all.
It's not a song, it's a way of life.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. We're just going to wait a few minutes as people join us. And in the meantime, we're inviting you to go to menti.com and enter the code 755-7621 and share with us, how would you describe faith and the common good in one word? Beatrice, if you would add that to the chat for everyone, please. Water was alive when we prayed at her edge and gave thanks for this life. When the water fell from the sky and we drank from her bosom. When the water fell from our eyes, when the water fell from our wombs, when it rose up to the surface and we knew every spring. No fear of competition, just a relative to a faith. We are people of the sun, we are people of the water. We will celebrate our sons, we will celebrate. I see Randall has joined us, our former board chair. Thank you for joining us tonight, Randall. We have Sukhvinder has joined us, who is going to a new board chair. Great bookends there. There is more than one creation story. And of course, Lucy Cummings, our fantabulous ED. Before I came on board. From Taos Peaks to Gulf Streams, the memories they hold. We saw about the We're inviting everyone. Elise, will you turn off the music, please? He said it's not a song. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. As we continue to let everyone in, we're inviting you to go to menti.com and using the code 7557621, share with us one word that you would use to describe faith in the common good. Let's see, revolutionary, diversity, holistic, enlightening, multi-talented. And you'll see on the screen that as people use the same or similar words, that is the word that will stand out more. So right now, togetherness seems to be the one that most people are sharing. I also invite you to share in the chat your name, the land that you're on, and perhaps a line about how you are connected to the FCG network. Let's see, the words that are standing out now are togetherness, inspiring, hopeful. We're just going to wait 1 or 2 more minutes as we let a few more people in. I want to say thank you all again for joining us. It's fabulous to see
everyone's names and learn how you're connected to the network, how you've been connected over the last 20 years or so. We'll just wait, I think, one more minute. I hope you're sharing how you would describe faith in the common good in one word on menti.com, and also sharing with us your name, where you are in Canada, and how you're connected to the Faith in the Common Good Network. I see we have inclusiveness, multi-talented, holistic, diversity, connection, engaged, amazing, super friendly. Oh, that's great. Oneness, purposeful, inspirational, revolutionary, collaborative, compelling, enlightening, inspiring, network, inclusive, friend, innovator, friendships, universal, all fabulous words. We will and it's refreshing again. Hopeful, inspiring, togetherness, and enlightening seem to be the big four. I love that they are the words that you would use to describe faith in the common good. And they are also tied in with our values. Inclusivity, inspiring action on the ground, bringing people together, another way to say that. Well, it's 5:10, so I think we will move on with this evening's program. Thank you so much for participating in that poll. We will be inviting you to participate in it again towards the end of our program. I want to now officially invite everyone to this evening's celebration, the 20th anniversary of Faith in the Common Good, Extraordinary People and Programs. We will be sharing a lot of stories with you this evening. I also want to take this opportunity, I should introduce myself. I'm Michelle Singh. I am the current Executive Director of Faith in the Common Good, and I am standing on the shoulders of giants this evening. I am so delighted that we have so many people here who were around at the founding of Faith in the Common Good. I want to take a moment to introduce grandmother Renee, who was born into the Haudenosaunee Confederacy of the Grand River Territory in Ontario, Canada. She will be offering us a prayer this evening.
Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to be with like-minded people. And I like to acknowledge the work that you are doing, because it has been the work of all creation. It is the natural world that had taught us all these words that you have shared tonight. The natural world that we see every day, the trees, the plants, the animals, that was their message to us at a time of long ago. They were given to us to help us to remember how to live as good human beings. The tree has shown us great qualities in integrity and spirituality. The birds have taught us how to sing and honor each and every one, no matter what color, nation, where we come from. All creation has shown their love, no matter who we are. They give unconditionally, even though we haven't deserved a lot of their love. And when you look and see the land, it talks about the greatest gift the Creator has ever given us, and that is unconditional love. When you look and you see the trees, how they right now they're shedding their leaves. You know what they're doing? They're preparing, they're sharing a gift, the gift of warmth, the gift of taking care of someone else greater than themselves. And that is the earth. For now, she needs to rest. And so they put forth all these beautiful leaves as her robe. Next will come winter, and winter will also contribute and share her gifts. And this will be the snow to also ensure the rest that she is needed. So all creation is there. They are reminding us how to live daily. And so this is why we do this. We acknowledge them and we give greetings and gratitude. De Tino Alada. So you look and you see all these beautiful things. It's in the language of love, the language of unconditional love, no matter where you come from. If you're rich, you're poor, you're blind, you see. All of this has been given unconditionally to each and every one of us, to even those that don't, as some people have said, don't deserve it. Our Mother, the Earth, says they deserve it just as well as the next person. And so we look and we see all these things. They are still showing their love for us. And we are very grateful that they are doing this to this very day. We are so blessed that they have shown us, no matter what we're going through, they have shown us how to be resilient. They have shown us never give up. They have shown us compassion and how to have a peaceful world because they work together. They work together so that we can be here and flourish. And so we like to acknowledge each and every one of them. And so in our minds, we gather up our minds and we give greetings and gratitude to each one. We give thanks for all that they have done for us since the beginning of time. We look and see that they are always fulfilling their duty. It is man that has forgotten how to live. And this is why the Creator had planted them as a reminder on how to live. For they live for us. And it is because they remind us of a law of life, the land, the air, and the water. This is why we had treaties, was to protect and look after each and every one. When we made those treaties, it was not just for our children, it was for all life, all children. And so we wanted to make sure that no one would suffer. And so this is why the treaties were made. The treaties was to help ensure that all creation would flourish. And so we say thank you to all that help us understand the purpose of life, and that is to work towards each other and fulfill the purpose of each and every one of us. We look and we see the winds, the songs of the trees and the plants. We see the colors and of all things, and we are so grateful. We look and we feel the rain, the snow, the changing of the season, how much love is given to us each day, and we are very grateful. We look and we see the waters that are here constantly being renewed and refreshed, and we give thanks. We look and we see all the trees, the animals, the four-legged ones, the two-legged ones, the winged ones, the fin ones. They are all sharing their purpose in life. And it is to remind us how to share and not be, as they say, take ownership, but to share this place on earth. So we look and we see how each of them share a part of their territory with us. And so we are very grateful. Now we put our minds to the sky where we look and we see all of these things being fulfilled. For it tells us never to give up. And that's the most beautiful things. In time of fear, all these things were given to us to remind us how to live, to be resilient. And so that is one of the most powerful gifts that I have received. Every day I look out into to the world, and I see that, and I'm very grateful for the Creator has provided me with that teaching. And I look and I see how all these things come together, not just for me, but for the generations before me and the generations that are coming. And it is up to us to protect it, take care of it, so that all will benefit from the wellness, and so that each and every one of us will have peace. And so we give thanks to each and every one of the ones that have gathered here tonight. May your minds be filled with the purpose of life, and that is to share our unconditional love, just like nature has shown, just like our mother has shown us, just like creation has shown us. And this is our purpose in life, is to take care of one another. We thank the Creator for putting this all in place for us, so that we will be reminded how to live in peace. And so I send peace on to each and every one of you. Peace to your families, peace to your communities, and peace for our future beings that are going to come, and that we have prepared our purpose in life. And so I say, and have a beautiful evening. And the harvest that you are going to provide today will benefit many generations, because that is what we always thought of, the generations to come. And so I leave you with that purpose of life. You are here to help sustain life for the next generations. Take care.
Oh, Miigwech, Grandmother Renee, I'm so very moved by your words. Thank you so very much for joining us. It's an absolute privilege. Thank you. Whew. I do want to acknowledge that Faith in the Common Good has projects from coast to coast to coast that are on the traditional territories of diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We seek to live in respect, peace, and right relations, and are mindful of broken covenants. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. By making a land acknowledgement, we are taking part in an act of reconciliation, honoring the land and Indigenous heritage, which dates back over 10,000 years. Well, here is our program for this evening. We're going to be talking about some of the extraordinary programs and people that have been engaged with us over the past 20 years. We're going to talk about where we came from, where we're going, and how we're getting there. Tonight, we're also delighted to have as our keynote speaker, Dr. Brian Carwana. At the end of our celebration, there will also be the formal annual general meeting. Everyone is invited to stay for the AGM. We'll have a little bit of a break in between, so that you can maybe get up and stretch a little bit, and then come back if you like for the AGM. Excuse me. You'll also notice on the slides that we've included pictures from various occasions over the years. We'll share some of those stories. Our speakers will share some of those stories as we move through as well. Next slide, please. We're going to begin with our founders, Reverend Bill Phipps, who is a past UCC moderator. He's a lawyer and social activist, and Reverend Ted Reeve, who is a social ethicist and educator. We like to call this Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. We're delighted, absolutely delighted that you are here this evening to join us. I hand the podium over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you for inviting us to be part of this celebration. It's very generous and kind of you to find us and to invite us to this celebration. We're both very honored and glad to be here. And congratulations on 20 years. And thanks to all those people since the time Faith and Common Good started, who have done the work in communities throughout this country and continue to expand the work. Thanks to all of you over these years. I'm to give a little, or Ted and I are to say something about the origins, and so I'm going to start off. I was elected moderator, which is the national leader of the United Church of Canada, in 1997. And my whole ministry, my whole career had been focused on social and economic justice. Regardless of where I was being minister, that was where what my focus was. And I wanted a major project for my time as moderator. And I thought it was time that we covered a more robust economic justice profile for the national church. So I pulled some people together, and some wonderful people, some of whom were involved for a while after we started. And we decided to launch this particular endeavor. And we got some funding from the United Church and some funding from a variety of sources. But the primary source of major funding came from the Atkinson Foundation through Charles Pascal, who is here tonight, and I'm delighted that he's here, so we can thank him again for his faith in what we would do and his providing the necessary funds so we could do it well. So thank you, Charles, for that. And Joe Atkinson was the publisher of the Toronto Star, and he had an enormous respect for the United Church in the early days and in the times of depression and so on, and the United Church commitment to social justice, and particularly economic justice. And so Charles said, you know, if the moderator of the United Church is going to start something like this, Joe Atkinson would really approve. So we had a very good relationship with the Atkinson Foundation, and they provided the funding. Ted Reeve came on as the executive director and led, well, as you said, Michelle, an amazing adventure. Ted's energy and intellect and ability to engage people is so good that we just were run off our pants, run off our feet with this endeavor. And it was a 3 years of intense engagement of Canadians. It was a public project to try to engage Canadians in economic justice. And the project touched a nerve in people, and they responded. We held town hall forums from Cape Breton to Port Alberni in smaller communities where they were suffering from the economic situation that they were in. Lots of people came, asked good questions, and were energized by the idea that we could do something about economic justice. We wrote articles, we were interviewed by the major media across the country and engaged in the public in a big way. 7 books came out of this project, 7 out of 3, not quite 3 years. Here's one of them called God and the Market. That's sort of the main book, but we produced booklets like this, claiming the social passion. The moderator's consultation for the common good, the church's witness to what? And call for a moral economy. 7 of these things we produced, and people actually a few years ago were coming up to me and said, do you have any more of those things? We'd love to use them for Bible study. It's good Bible study because that's what the Bible is about. Anyway, we did all that, and there was tremendous energy and engagement. The time was right. We ended the official thing, the official moderator's consultation on faith in the economy, with a huge event on Parliament Hill in the Railway Committee room of the House of Commons of Parliament. And we had a whole day thing with lunch served. And we engaged the leaders of all the political representatives, some of the leaders of all the political parties in the House at that time, with some amazing people. And that was sort of the end of the official thing. My term as moderator ended in the year 2000. And Ted and I said, oh, geez, what are we going to do now? Part of it was people were engaged and they were saying, well, we're just getting started. So what's next? So we were wondering, okay, what's next? Well, we had some meetings with Charles about whether the Atkinson would be interested in the next iteration. And Ted's going to talk about how we transitioned from the moderator's consultation of faith and the economy into faith and the common good. We realized it had to be an interfaith project now and not just United Church. And I'll just say that the last thing I'll say is to thank Ted for his work. We're still working on projects, by the way, even though I'm 100 years old and Ted isn't far behind. We're still working on projects together because we work well together. But Ted's energy and ability to know what is needed at the moment was uncanny. And if it wasn't for Ted, this thing would not have happened. And I want to thank you with this gathering, Ted, for your imagination and just your downright skill at getting these things done. So over to you for the continuing amazing adventure.
Well, I can also say that it wouldn't have happened without Bill's passionate engagement and his having stirred the national pot with a theological controversy about Christian belief that attracted widespread attention, and Bill's incredible oratory abilities that inspired and has inspired many since. So it was in those town hall meetings, as we've traveled across the country, that we recognized that people from different faith communities were coming out to these gatherings and had shared similar concerns to us. And so that's what we had presented to Charles, that, could we test a different kind of interfaith gathering? There had been other interfaith gatherings that we knew of, but our approach was an ethics-based approach. How do we work on the common good together as a way to bring our different faith traditions together? And so we got some initial funding to go test that across the country. And so we found that there was excitement around it. So the first thing we engaged in was following on the economic issue around consumerism. And so we approached it from a Buddhist perspective and a Muslim perspective and a Hindu perspective and a Jewish perspective and a Christian perspective, and talked because consumerism and its impact affects all of us as Canadians. From there, we ventured into the Royal Commission on the Reform of Healthcare, led by Roy Romano, and that was a big issue in the early 2000s. And we engaged with Kairos in organizing town hall meetings all across the country and prepared people to go to the commissions. And so when Roy Romano was presenting his final report, he included in the opening section an ethics statement around healthcare as being a right for all Canadians. And he said that the reason that they started off this way was because all across the country, there had been all these interfaith groups that had come to our town halls with a similar kind of message. And so we felt that our voice was being heard. In those travels, we also heard from young people of different faith traditions about how important the environment was. And at the similar times, the picture in the top right has David Suzuki, and our paths crossed. And David Suzuki was launching a nature challenge at the time. And so we were buoyed by our experience. And so I boastfully said to David Suzuki that we could rally the faith communities to respond to the nature challenge. And so we created our own pamphlet called Renewing the Sacred Balance, and had similar strategies to what the Suzuki nature challenge was. And I would go out, and others would go out, and we'd present this impassioned plea to people to sign out of 10 things, 1 or 2 things that they could do to help the environment. And it was a total flop. People nodded and were there, but it was a lesson to us about how reluctant people are about committing to doing even the smallest things around environmental concern. And unfortunately, that, as we know, carries on to this day. But that inspired us, out of that kind of humbling experience, to begin greening sacred spaces. And that was the launch of it. Was, okay, we need to work in our faith communities as examples to ourselves and to the broader community of how faith communities can be leaders in a green initiative. And so we had developed green teams, and we developed the Green Rule poster and all kinds of resources. And Kristina Inrig is absolutely essential to the evolution of this. We had animators, but it was Kristina's energy that connected us with the Trillium Foundation, and she coordinated the animators across the country and really grew our program over the next decade to where it got to. And we, Bill and I, felt that it was time for us to, as the founders, to step back and allow new energy to come in and carry it on. And we are so pleased that it has carried on into Lucy's leadership and all of the animators that have continued to work across the country. So my last parting thought is, in 2003, when we began this, we thought there was a climate emergency then. And we were passionate about convincing people. So here we are in 2021, and the emergency that we had all talked about then is in our face. And so how do we continue to engage our faith communities with the passion and commitment that is out there and in our faces, that faith communities aren't pacifiers of people, but are responding to the ethical challenges that are here today. So that's my vision and my hope and my blessing to ongoing work in faith in the common good.
Thank you both so very much. I learn something new every time I hear you speak. And I am left with, there's an African, it's attributed to several different countries in Africa that says we stand on the shoulders of our elders. And I'm very, very proud to stand on your shoulders, and very proud to continue building the work that you started. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now introduce Charles, who's already been mentioned by both Bill and Ted. He was the executive director at the Atkinson Foundation, who gave us the first grant that got this work started. Charles?
Bonjour, Chimigwech. Il me fait grand plaisir d'être ici parmi vous pour cette occasion très spéciale. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I must say, listening to Bill and Ted just reinforces what it looks like when you see great leadership. Leadership is doing the right things, and management is doing the right things well. And you can see the wonderful interplay between these two remarkable individuals. It seems like only yesterday that all of this unfolded. Bill made mention to Mr. Atkinson. So when Bill who's a very persuasive fellow. Notwithstanding, he didn't have to be persuasive with his pitch to the foundation. When he came to the Atkinson Foundation, it was a no-brainer, given Mr. Atkinson and given where the Atkinson Foundation was. So let's go back to Mr. Atkinson's youth. His father died when he was 7. So this would be in the, middle of the maybe around 1875, maybe a little bit earlier. His mother, 7 kids, living in a pretty bleak situation. She had to take in boarders, and most of those boarders were laborers coming over from England with the social gospel in their bosom and the conversation around the table. And Mr. Atkinson's mother and family were infused with an understanding of what great faith can do. Mr. Atkinson, from 1899 until 1948, without question, had the biggest influence on public policy that underscored social and economic justice in Canada. I will not give you a litany of the things that still are around today as a result of his advocacy from his perch at the Toronto Daily Star. And regarding the social gospel in the United Church, look, I'm old enough to remember and to have known Bob McClure, Bruce McLeod, Lois Wilson, and Bill Phipps, to name a few others, although I can't name the current one, which raises a particular question. And we are talking about faith impacting public policy. Bill's tenure as moderator, remarkable example of trying to pull back the curtain regarding social and economic justice. So from the point of view of the Atkinson Foundation, this is our DNA. I remember Bill and Ted. I remember when the board was discussing your proposal regarding money, and Mr. Hondrick, this is Beelan Hondrick Sr., a incredible and fierce fighter for social economic justice. He wondered whether you guys were asking for enough money. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we probably gave you more than what you asked for. Let me end with one particular story very quickly. Somebody from one of the churches came to see me at the Atkinson Foundation. He said he noticed that the Atkinson Foundation had affected public policy regarding Ontario's poverty reduction strategy, a full-day kindergarten for 250,000 kids, and a whole bunch of other things that related to social and economic justice. And his question to me, he was a young man representing a church that I won't name, and he said, how does the Atkinson Foundation do this? What advice would you give our church in terms of making this kind of difference? I hesitated. His tape recorder was on. For effect, I took a sip of water. I leaned into the microphone and I said, "Follow Christ." And that's all I said. Bill won't believe that I actually went into silence for 30 seconds. And he kept asking, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean." I said, "Look, if you read any of the journalists, I prefer John because it's so poetic. If Christ were around today, do you think he would allow the ratio between the bank president and the teller to be a gazillion, degrees of difference? Do you think he would allow public policies that reinforce families in poverty? Do you think he would allow the denigration of our environment? Do you think he would allow what's taking place with the children living in sinful situations? No. Christ today would be the biggest rebel around. He would make Bill Phipps look like a Boy Scout. And the guy just, he stood back and he said, "Geez, where did you get your biblical training?" I said, "I'm a Jew born in Chicago. What do I know?" So let me just simply say the questions for today. And because of grandmother's prayer, my hope is churches with this incredible organization, Faith of the Common Good, if we just looked at the devastating neglect of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action, if we just took 3 or 4, I'm saying we, Bill and Ted, as though I'm part of the faith in the common good. If we just took on one of the most disgraceful recurring consequences of the residential schools and reignited an attack on the public policies and lack of action on the levels of government, including our federal government, which has shown disrespect, creating high expectations. It's time for reconciliation, and it's time to move well beyond performative stuff regarding, how much we care. The 215 unmarked graves near Kamloops, I thought that was going to trigger a higher level of literacy among those who simply don't know and don't understand. Lots of work to be done. So the question for faith in the common good is, what are the churches doing? What are they not doing? And why? And what do they need to do following the kind of intersectional, wonderful, horizontal, collaborative, inspiring togetherness of faith in the common good? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Charles. We so appreciate your time. We just met recently, and I really appreciate that you were able to jump in and join us. Next, I will introduce Kristina Inrig, who you've heard mentioned before. She is a sustainability entrepreneur extraordinaire. I will let Kristina take it from here.
Thank you so much. And Michelle, I'm just so thrilled to be here at this event. It is such a milestone to reach 20 years. Bill and Ted, it was so great to hear your words. And I'm just really encouraged by the wonderful comments in the chat here tonight. As Ted mentioned, my role, I came on the scene in 2004, just after David Suzuki was getting involved in the program and just as Greening Sacred Spaces was launching. At that time, I was a university student and I was passionate about the environment, and I was a newer person of faith and just trying to understand this connection. And when Ted rode up on his motorcycle to a coffee shop in Ottawa to tell me about this project, I was very keen to see how I could get involved. So I'm just so thrilled to have been part of it. And one of my roles, as Ted was mentioning, was to really help build our capacity across the country. At the time when we started, we were a project of the Toronto School of Theology, and I was helping us to incorporate and get charitable status and figure out how do we organize ourselves across the country. And what I did know is that we had some incredible people in different cities who really cared about these issues, people of faith from all different traditions, and people who just really wanted to share and build and learn from each other. And so one of the biggest gifts of this network is the incredible people that we have across the country working on these issues. What I've always found the magic of faith in the common good is just those conversations across the kitchen table or within those faith community meetings. And I'm actually right now in the basement of my church. That's where my office is. And it is just always incredible as we're sitting across from each other and learning about what are people on the ground in their faith communities passionate about, and then finding ways to support them. So this idea of having green teams working together to support each other, the idea of developing chapters and having multi-faith steering committees to do work. We had so many really fun projects that we did, things like the 1 ton challenge, where we helped to reduce energy consumption in communities in 5 different cities. We've had several initiatives to reduce energy consumption. And obviously right now, our big one has been around energy benchmarking. I like to think of faith in the common good in terms of waves. We've gone in so many different waves over the years. Some waves where we've been very active and engaged in different communities, and other times when we've sort of shrunk down a little bit. And of course, sometimes that's had to do with funding, and I've been very involved in that piece, but it's also had to do with what are the pressing issues of our time. But what is always maintained from my perspective with this organization is that there's a passion and a collaborative network of people of faith out there who care about their congregation or their community or the place where they're situated in, and they want to look at how they can contribute back. And one of the things that I have always found so encouraging is just the kindness that we find with each other and with the community. Muneeb, you said in the chat earlier that I am a friend of FCG. And Cheryl, you also made that same comment. And that is really true of many of the people that I have met in this network, sitting at a mosque or a synagogue, speaking at a gurdwara and learning about how to connect with a new community of faith that I may have never met before. All of those experiences for me as I was developing my career in the environmental sector, it was an incredible opportunity to meet people. And the kindness and the smiles and the joy that I felt in this community, because we are dealing with difficult issues, but it was that joy and that hope that always seemed to shine through. So thank you for letting me be a part of it. Thank you, Bill and Ted, for your inspiration. And of course, I really look forward to the rest of the speakers today. And with that, my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristina. I have to tell you all, I have learned so much from Kristina in the time that I have been here. I wish there was a way just to absorb knowledge from her. She's really an extraordinary teacher. Now, we are running a little bit behind schedule, and we have a speaker who needs to leave to facilitate another large meeting himself. So we're going to skip ahead a couple of slides, and I'm inviting Erik Mathiesen to speak next. He is the Chief Financial Officer at the United Church of Canada. And I noticed in Erik's LinkedIn profile that he describes his role as a humbling opportunity to serve all the folks across the country. I want to give Erik an opportunity now to speak about the relationship Faith in the Common Good has with the United Church of Canada, and particularly the Faithful Footprints program. Welcome, Erik.
Thank you, Michelle. And for any United Church geeks on the call, I apologize. I have to duck out to do a webinar for the recall of the 43rd General Council webinar tonight in just a few minutes. So it isn't lack of interest on my part. I just want to say it's a privilege to be part of this celebration. Honestly, it was just the other day that I learned that Faith in the Common Good was founded by Bill Phipps and Ted Reeve, but I have to say I'm not surprised at all. And then the Atkinson Foundation connection is remarkable too. I happen to have recently finished 7 years as chair of the Atkinson Foundation board, and I still serve on the investment committee. And what the Atkinson history has always been is making big bets and trying to be a catalyst. And Charles described that better than I ever could, but that tradition continues to this day, and certainly was a major feature during Charles's leadership. And this is just one example, but a very important one. My own connection with Faith in the Common Good probably started about 10 years ago, when we helped the United Church wanted to, I guess, engage more actively on the climate file, and we thought that having
It looks as though Erik is frozen. We might have lost him. Let's just see if he can come back in. Just give us one moment. Can't have a Zoom meeting without.
folks,
Is that you, Erik?
I'm sorry, folks. I am working with tenuous internet tonight. But just to say, I think I was cut off when I was describing the United Church decision to divest of fossil fuels in 2015. And we realized then that there was a tremendous amount of work that we had to do to get our own house in order and get our own houses in order. United Church, all church buildings are notorious resource hogs. And so we commissioned an initial study with Faith in the Common Good. And then that we were pleased enough with that work led by Lucy Cummings that we commissioned a 5-year multi-million-dollar program called The Faithful Footprints. And this program has proven to be a win-win partnership and a real, I think, catalyst for both church communities and I hope for Faith in the Common Good as well. For this organization, for you folks, I think we provided a greater degree of secure funding than you might have had for a while, which has helped you scale up and build out these great networks that you've maintained through thick and thin. But for the church, we got professional adjudication of funding applications, dedicated support to regional staff, re-energizing folks locally. And here's something that I love as a financial person. I love that we had really kind, expert advisors like Stephen and others who would say no to a funding application where, putting wonderful multi-seal windows into an old barn that has no insulation doesn't really improve anything. Or putting the wrong kind of insulation into a heritage building, all kinds of little things where the ability to say no just gave me more confidence that all the times they said yes and worked to get a yes answer. As a financial person, it just gave me tremendous confidence in the organization. And on top of that, we emphasized the Faithful Footprints work as part of the church's own and first sustainability report, something that we plan to do probably every other year. It isn't just about church buildings, it's about all kinds of things. It's about our investments and what we're doing in that space, environmental social governance activism and shareholder engagement. It's about what we've done in our own buildings, what we're trying to do on the advocacy file. But just to say that this partnership with Faith in the Common Good, without knowing the history and without knowing, I've worked with Bill and Ted, a bit on other files, but without knowing that, it's really making me smile tonight to think that this partnership has renewed and grown, and I'm very proud to be part of your 20th anniversary celebrations, even though I'll be, grabbing a drink and running out the door as these things go for the internet. So thank you again, and congratulations.
Thank you so very much for joining us, Erik. It wouldn't be a Zoom meeting without a little bit of technical difficulties. We so appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. And good luck with your facilitation tonight.
Hopefully that's my one outage. Good night, folks.
Bye now. So we will go back a little bit to the flow that we were originally planning. Bill and Ted and Charles and Kristina talked about our beginnings, how we got started. And now I'm inviting Lucy Cummings, who was the ED after Ted. She's now the senior advisor to me. We will not let her go. And she is also working, she's also a senior manager with New York Disaster Interfaith. Then she will be followed by Tom Urbaniak, the current chair of the board. And Tom's also an associate professor of political science at Cape Breton University. I know Lucy also has to run to another commitment, so I'm just getting her in underneath the 6 p.m. wire. So thank you so much, Lucy, for joining us tonight.
No, what a delight. Wow. I might start crying, which is typical for those who know me, because I'm surrounded by the hope and the energy and the spirit of such an incredible network. When we're looking at the vision and mission statement, one of the incredible things about Faith in the Common Good is that the vision is so clear and compelling. 2/3 of Canadians would claim a connection with a faith community. Our faith buildings are in every community around the country. So to be able to look around your community, and whether you see a synagogue or a church or a gurdwara, to have those buildings and those communities role model sustainability best practices, community gardens, energy efficiencies, EV charging stations, that taken together, that vision is really powerful. And it was what attracted me to the organization initially. And it's really, when people ask me who Faith in the Common Good is, what do we do? When I lay out that vision of every community of faith participating in this vision of renewing the sacred balance, as Ted and Bill said, people get it. So, and then the other thing I wanted to say is the engine behind this vision and mission and this incredible network that really makes it all possible are this group of nationwide volunteers in communities of faith around the country that we have the privilege to work with. Oftentimes people, I mean, this is an insider conference to a certain extent. So we know that Faith in the Common Good is a lean, mean machine. And when you look at our financial report, and when you look at the size of our staff, it's on the leaner side. So people would also often say to me, how do you do everything that you do? And the answer is that we have thousands of volunteers working within their own faith communities to spearhead these incredible projects. Energy efficiency work by St. Luke's Anglican in Ottawa, community garden work, weeding and watering by the Solel congregation in Oakville. There's plenty of interfaith training. One of the most powerful was when we had the Jafari Center share their incredible waste management program with a group of Catholic men and women religious on climate, who were dedicated to carbon reduction and lowering their environmental footprint. So that kind of train the training as well. This is and on the other hand, the other thing that keeps popping up is all the incredible justice advocacy work. And I keep thinking of Kitchener-Waterloo and Divest Waterloo and all the incredible work that they've done. And in my mind, I think of Diane Sachs, who went and spoke at the Waterloo Town Hall, and she sold out the audience thanks to the organizing effort of so many people of faith in that community. So, you know, we all read about the divisions and in our country and our society around the environment and climate, and that just is not our experience in this network. We are working together. We all want tangible ways to put our faith into practice, to put our values around the environment into practice. We all want to build a greener, more just world for our children and our grandchildren. And this network of faith and hope is very humbling. And whenever I get too bogged down in the politics of climate, I always go back and think about these incredible people and incredible volunteers that we had the privilege and continue to have the privilege in working with. And I'll wrap up with something someone said to me yesterday. I was on a call to put together a panel for the upcoming Parliament of the World's Religions. And the panel is about interfaith collaboration internationally. And it's a story of the Green Anglican community in Namibia who were protecting an incredible ecosystem and a protected indigenous area against a Canadian company who was engaging in oil and gas exploration. And so they reached out to Canada, to ourselves, to Kairos, to the Anglican communion in across the world. And as part of this, sorry, that's a long backstory, but as part of this, they were consulting with Archbishop Tutu, and one of the questions put to him was, are you optimistic? Are you optimistic about our future with regard to, given the climate degradation that we're participating in? And he said, no, I'm not optimistic, but I'm a prisoner of hope. I thought that was a beautiful expression, and I take great hope from our network and the ongoing courage and hopefulness of so many people of faith and spirit just to keep going, to keep up the fight. So thank you. And I'm so excited that we're all gathering again and look forward to continuing to be a gadfly in our time together.
Thank you, Lucy. You are always inspiring, and I hear a new story every time you speak. Thank you so much. Tom, our board chair, Tom Urbaniak, our board chair, will now share a few words.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for your leadership. It's really amazing to work with you and with your predecessor, Lucy Cummings. You are inspiring people. I've learned a lot from you. I'm in Unamagi, Cape Breton, which is part of the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And my own faith community is in the diverse neighborhood of Whitney Pier, which is part of Sydney, Nova Scotia. And in this place, immigrants from around the world came to work in a steel plant. That steel plant closed 25 years ago, and in its place, there was one of the most notorious contaminated sites in Canada. You've probably heard about it, the Sydney tar ponds. And in the wake of that steel plant, there was a high level of unemployment and despair. And if not for the diverse faith communities retaining their strength and their determination and working together, this community would have died. And so that's part of what drew me personally to Faith in the Common Good. I had also already witnessed some of the projects of Faith in the Common Good on the ground, Stephen Collette and the Green Audits, the work that was being done on food security, some of the early steps that faith communities were taking to set up solar co-ops. And I was seeing how that is part of the new post-industrial, more just economy that civil society in Cape Breton is trying to build. So on behalf of colleagues on the board who bring their own rich experiences and whom we'll be introducing during the AGM section of our meeting, on behalf of the past chairs of the board, our immediate past chair, Randall Goodfellow is here. Just a heartfelt thanks to everyone who is involved in this vast network now, who has been involved at any time for keeping the faith, so to speak. Je tiens à remercier notre réseau tout entier qui travaille de façon très, très forte d'un bout à l'autre du pays. Et je tiens à remarquer aussi que vous avez toujours gardé, comme les autres intervenants ont dit, un espoir, une joie, une détermination, un optimisme. Et je suis sûr que ça va continuer pour les prochains 20 ans et même au-delà. Very often the highlight of my month is attending the monthly full network meeting where different projects and local pods come together. That strengthens my faith in every sense of the term. Earlier this week, Michelle and I did a segment on faith and the environment for a CBC radio series in my part of the country called The People's School on Community Leadership. And we tried to give a small sense of the thousands of actions, large and small, that FCG and its partners take on the ground every year, and how maybe these can be replicated. But we also reflected on how there inevitably is, a spiritual dimension to this urgent work, a spiritual dimension in the broad sense of the term. So when we convened our network shortly before the pandemic to reflect on goals for the years ahead, building on all the work that has been done, the messages we heard were, keep the faith, let the faiths and the spiritual communities continue to enrich everything we do. Build on all the actions because we have a reputation for action. Keep the creative nimbleness, and this has been remarked on already, and the ability to pop up across the country and have an impact. Keep that deep sense of social, economic, environmental justice. Do it all with a deep commitment to reconciliation. Enhance the diversity in every sense of the term, and that means being open to new things and new ways. Plant seeds, don't over control, but keep the organization resilient by making sure we have good systems. And during the official AGM portion, we'll say a bit more about the excellent work that's being done there. So in summary, I'm excited about FCG, as I know all my colleagues on the board and in the entire network are, but I'm worried about our communities. I'm worried about our world. I'm worried about our civil society and its erosion. The erosion of our social ties to one another. I am worried about the hatred and despair that seem to be on the rise in so many places. I'm worried about a lot of things, but if FCG can build on our last 20 years, I really think there is hope. I started by talking about post-industrial Cape Breton, where my home is and where my own faith community is. My own faith community usually comes together in the Polish language. And on occasions like this, we conclude any remarks by saying, Bóg zapłaci powodzenia. Bóg zapłaci powodzenia. Blessings and best wishes. And that's my heartfelt message to all of the friends assembled here. Bóg zapłaci powodzenia, pokój z wami, peace be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Tom. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your partnership. I so appreciate your words. And I also appreciate that you gave that synopsis, because it means that I can make up some time by not having to cover those things again. Next slide, please. Thank you. The next few slides, I'm going to move through fairly briefly, as just to make sure that we honor everyone's time and that we keep relatively close to the schedule. What we're sharing with you now is how we're going to get there. Given what our vision and mission is, how are we going to get there? And I'm going to just briefly describe our 3 pillars. The first is building capacity via diversity. That, and when we're talking about diversity, we are talking about it at every level, on our staff, our programs, our board, looking at our multi-faith and multicultural makeup. Erik spoke a bit about how we're diversifying our revenue base. with the fee for service program, Faithful Footprints. We also acquire grants from community foundations, from municipalities and federal government. We are immensely grateful for the individuals who have been supporting Faith in the Common Good with their donations through Canada Helps over the years. We're taking this opportunity to really look at continuing to diversify in every area, also in the communities that we reach out to, making sure that we are continuing to reach out to newcomer communities, engaging them in the work that we're doing. Also, geographical diversity. I have to be honest and say, you know, a significant majority of our work is being done in Ontario. However, we have partners across the country, and I'll talk more about that actually in another slide. Can I have the next slide, please? Our next pillar, strengthening communities. This is so crucial to having, to raising our faithful voices and having impact across the country. It's, I think from the very beginning, Bill started talking about how faith-based organizations are critical partners when we raise our voices and focus on a specific issue. In our case, we're focusing on climate and the environment issues. And it's an opportunity for us to make significant impact by raising our voices together. In terms of strengthening communities, you've heard a couple of people have already mentioned our gardening programs, addressing things like extreme climate resilience. We have a number of different programs in that area that you'll actually hear about a little bit further on in our program. One of the reports that we recently did was about the invisible infrastructure behind rural communities, the impact on the rural community of faith buildings in their community. Beatrice will share with you in the chat a link to that report so that you can explore that at your leisure. Next slide, please. We're also, our third pillar is harnessing sustainability, really catalyzing faith-based organizations to expand their impact. Again, to demonstrate the power that we have when we come together, to do things from zero waste religious holidays. We're seeing that in Khalifa has a program for Ramadan that does that. We're seeing that in Catholic congregations as well across the country that are starting to make that kind of impact. People are in communities are starting to take those messages home and having an impact in their personal communities as well. In the GTHA and in Ottawa, we've had, I think, cumulatively right now, more than 150 faith communities that have participated in benchmarking programs that looked at ways to reduce their emissions and looked at a number of other factors within their congregations. Next slide, please. So this is where Erik came in and shared with us about Faithful Footprints. I want to also just briefly touch on organizations like Edmonton Community Foundation, who has who facilitates a legacy fund from a family who's been contributing to FCG for decades. Clean Economy Fund, we've been working with them on a climate narratives program for a couple of years now. Catherine Donnelly Foundation, we're just putting the finishing touches on an eco-investment toolkit for the Catholic community. It is accessible to other faith communities as well. That will be published by the end of this year. And as of course, as I said earlier, individual and family donors continue to contribute to us, and we're so very grateful for their support in helping us do the work that we're doing. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to introduce, on the slide, you can see, several of the more funders that we work with. We couldn't get 20 years of funders on these slides. We tried to get some diversity in here as well. One of the organizations that we have been working with since 2014, I believe, is the Olive Tree Foundation. And this evening, I'm delighted that we have the chair of the foundation, Muneeb Nasir, joining us. He's also the co-chair of the National Muslim Christian Liaison Committee. I've known Muneeb for years through my work in the interfaith world, even prior to joining Faith in the Common Good. And I'm really very grateful that you're able to join us here tonight, Muneeb.
Thank you, Michelle, and peace be with you. First of all, I would like to congratulate Faith in the Common Good for 20 years of exceptional service to our community. I feel very honored and blessed to be here in this company of visionaries and excellent activists in the field. The Olive Tree Foundation is pleased to support the important work of Faith in the Common Good. The Olive Tree Foundation is a Muslim-led public endowment that promotes community development. And we do so by funding compelling needs in our society. And one of the compelling needs that we have identified at the Olive Tree Foundation are projects that address the climate crisis. This existential crisis that the entire world is facing. And we are pleased to fund currently the Greening Canadian Moss Project. And earlier, I think about 8 years ago, we had funded the Weather Resilience Project of Faith in the Common Good. But in addition to the modest funding that the Olive Tree Foundation gives to Faith in the Common Good, the more important role that we see that we are doing is opening the channels of communication to the fastest growing faith community now in this country, which is the Muslim community, and it's a very young community. And we see this as an important role of opening these channels of communication to the Muslim community, as well as validating the work of the Faith in the Common Good to the Muslim community. I was asked a question as to why do we continue to fund Faith in the Common Good? As a faith-based foundation, the approach of Faith and the Common Good resonates with us. As you're bringing together faith and spiritual groups and congregations to take collective action to address the environmental crisis. I think all of us agree that bold action is needed at this point in our history, at all levels in our country and in our world. I read Ted Reeve's reflection on his blog post, and I just listened to him on the funding of Faith in the Common Good. And one of the points that he makes, and I think this is the essential point, is that for change to happen, it would fundamentally need to be a spiritual change. I think all of us from faith communities understand this, that it has to be a spiritual change. And people of faith who today make up more than 80% of the world's population, we have a crucial role to play in addressing this existential crisis that the world is facing. And we feel that the Faith in the Common Good is uniquely placed in this country to bring together an interfaith coalition to respond to this environmental crisis. So as I said in my comment in the chat box, I consider myself a friend of faith and the common good, and the Olive Tree Foundation. We look to deepen this friendly relationship, and we look forward to collaborating with you in future projects and supporting you as you move forward to greater heights. So once again, thank you to Faith and the Common Good, to all of the passionate staff and volunteers, and we wish you all of the best in the next 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Muneeb. We so appreciate the support of Olive Tree Foundation and look forward to continuing to build our relationship in the years to come. Next slide, please. This slide shares some more of our partners. And sorry, I think we might have skipped ahead one, actually. Or are we on the... Oh, no, I'm sorry, you were right. This is the right one. I apologize. Please give me an opportunity to introduce one of our partners. Lisa Kohler is the Executive Director from Halton Environmental Network. They are also Greening Sacred Spaces, Halton Peel chapter. Lisa?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Michelle. What a brilliant evening. Congratulations, FCG, on 20 years of amazingness. The Halton Environmental Network is proud to be part of the FCG network. FCG has inspired HEN to be better partners, better listeners, and to drive more collective action for our community of Halton. HEN is grateful to have propelled the local Greening Sacred Spaces chapter, supporting faith-based organizations in green audits, energy benchmarking, greening community spaces inside and out, growing food, showing the green rule. It's just been brilliant for our community. HEN would also, with the help of Faith in the Common Good in the town of Oakville, have the pleasure of propelling the OakvilleREADY program. Now with over 7 hubs in our community, and I'm excited to announce also some future expansion of the program. We are driving collective action for climate mitigation in the community of Oakville. The hubs were designed for neighbors helping neighbors in times of extreme weather, and also to be a conduit for education and information around climate change and climate resiliency. Throughout the challenges of the COVID pandemic, the hubs took on new roles in our community and serviced the community in unusual but authentic ways throughout the crisis. In our community, the hubs provided countertop gardens and special notes, greeting seniors and brightening their days, created food drives. We hosted Zoom webinars to teach our communities from cooking from your pantry or using food waste and how to make food out of food waste to how to use the virtual library with our friends from the Oakville Public Library. The future of the program is very bright. We're having more climate conversations, book clubs with Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, and lots of collective action planned for the coming year. HEN is very grateful to Faith in the Common Good for sharing, teaching, your friendship, your partnership. We work better and more authentically in our community thanks to Faith in the Common Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for joining us. It's a pleasure to work with you all, and I'm always so impressed by the work that you and your team are doing. Just want to, on this slide, you'll see a number of other partners. Enviro Muslims, you just heard about a little bit about. Environment Hamilton has also been involved in a number of different projects, including extreme weather resilience. Ecology Action Center in Halifax, Purpose Construction in Winnipeg, and NAWO in Camrose, Alberta, are the 3 regional support centers for the Faithful Footprints program. Next slide, please. You see that we have a few more partners listed here as well. Some of the highlights include CREW, Community Resilience to Extreme Weather, have been an extraordinary partner over the years and were instrumental in helping develop the Lighthouse project that was in Hamilton, Toronto, and Brampton. Did I get that right? Just had a little bit of a brain freeze there. And many, many, many other local partners across the country that have worked with us to build resilient communities within their locality. Thank you all for your partnership. Next slide, please. Another, as you heard from many of our speakers, Indigenous allyship has been a part of our work from the beginning. And one of the things that we want to do tonight is to invite everyone in our network, everyone that is attending, to join us in the Indigenous Canada online course that's being offered by the University of Alberta. Beatrice is going to put a couple of links in the chat for you. If you're interested in joining us, please email Elise. We are, as a community, going to do this course together starting in January. To reiterate some of what's been said earlier, this is part of our Reconciliation initiative. Reconciliation is something that happens each and every day, not an event, not an occasion, not just in a land acknowledgement. There's so much to learn, and we have an opportunity to do that as a community. I think that that would help us all have a deeper understanding of the issues, and it would be a fabulous opportunity to build community together. Speaking of building together, next slide. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone joining us here this evening, this is what we've created together. I want you to just take a moment and look at this network map. Elise, if you would share the full screen, you can remove my pin. And this is the work that has continued to build over the last 20 years or so. Greening sacred spaces, the number of cities that are a part of this programming across the country. We've talked about faithful footprints. We've talked about greening Canadian moss. We've talked about the extreme weather resilience programming. I don't want to leave out some of our Catholic programs. Cultivating Care for a Common Home, one of our very first programs. Now the Mouvement Laudato Si Movement Canada is also underneath our umbrella. Regeneration Works, Places of Faith, the report that I mentioned earlier, all of the energy benchmarking work, outdoor greening, building audits, green certification. There are free tools available on our website that will help you and your community get started. And I will wrap up talking about this. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone that has been a part of, wow, making this happen. This is extraordinary. From the very beginning, we've also been involved in programming around the sacredness of water. We have walked with Indigenous grandmothers as they blessed the Great Lakes. We've had a number of programs over the years, and we thought it was fitting that our keynote speaker today would go deeper into the importance of water It's my privilege to welcome Dr. Brian Carwana, Executive Director of Encounter World Religions, to share his keynote, Water, Nourisher, Mother, Teacher. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to for the whole organization for the opportunity to do this. I really appreciate the opportunity, and especially thanks to you, Michelle, for the invite. There are so many things to discuss when it comes to the environment, to climate, and I realize, of course, that much of the news on this front is at least concerning, if not outright bad. But I decided that tonight I would take a different course. I study religions, and religions too, to be honest, can be bad. They can do great harms. I won't enumerate them here, but they endure partly because they can display beauty too. And so today I wanted to draw down to the elemental, if you will, to choose a specific element, that of water, and see what some of the world's spiritual traditions might say about it. Water, of course, is a source of everything. It's a basic requirement for most every known form of life. It's in water that life on this planet began, and also the place where our own individual lives begin. It's the first environment we know. We come into being in the water of our mother's womb, and know water before we know the sensation of breathing air. Even post-birth, after oxygen, it remains our most pressing need. And beyond mere thirst, we know that all the food sources we require, be they animal or plant, need water as well. Given these uncompromising biological realities, it is perhaps only logical that we have evolved to notice water, to seek it out, and to cherish it. This is only enhanced by the fact that it does much more for us than sustain life, cooling us in unbearable heat and cleaning and refreshing us from the grime of daily life. And so it is not surprising that we make water central to our rituals, our stories, and our mythologies. In what follows, I want to take us on a brief tour of some of the world's spiritual traditions to see how water has been used, how it has been seen, and how it has shaped rituals, mythologies, and even in some cases, our understanding of the very universe. I won't linger long on any one tradition, but rather we will move quickly through the diversity of humanity's religious and cultural traditions to see what we may glean. Let us begin where we should begin, with First Nations communities. For these communities, water can have a myriad of meanings. For the Anishinaabe, water, called Nabi, is considered our mother. It is also, of course, one of the four elements, each associated with a cardinal direction. In the case of water, it aligns with the west, the direction of the setting sun. Water, you might say, is thus cardinal. It orients us. And this is true. It determines the directions of our settlement patterns. Waterways are like veins on maps that trace the path from town to town. And many of us still orient ourselves to water, especially if you live or grew up near bodies of water like lakes or seas. The water becomes the cardinal point, the orientation for our entire sense of direction. Many of you may know that since 2003, Indigenous elders, mostly women, as Michelle was just mentioning, have led annual water walks circling Lake Superior in 2003 in 35 days. In following years, other lakes, great and otherwise, have been circled in a call to heal our waterways. It is particularly ironic, poignant, and galling, if I may say that one of the great offenses against the Indigenous communities of this land is that so many lack clean water. The Anishinaabe linking of water and mother has been made elsewhere as well. Zoroastrianism is a tiny religion today, but was once the religion of the Persian Empire and one of the world's largest. The tradition has a deep reverence for water. Their scriptures, the Yasna, call water the mother of life, echoing Anishinaabe language almost exactly. There's also a water divinity in Zoroastrianism, and fittingly, it is a goddess, not a god, by the name of Anahita. In Zoroastrianism, water is purified or sanctified in special ceremonies, with some of the sanctified water then taken to a natural source, a river or stream, and poured in as a kind of offering. On the 10th day of each month, Zoroastrians are to make a pilgrimage to a water source to offer respect and prayers. And one of the 6 large festivals, the Midsummer Gahambar, focuses on water. I had the privilege of attending one of these in Toronto. And while there was a time for sacredness, they also found time for another sacred activity, namely play. Kids ran around with water balloons and buckets, splashing each other and adults, some of whom participated willingly and sometimes unwillingly. And we use water this way, don't we? It's sacred, it keeps us alive, and yet it's also integral to play, to joy, to relaxation. If we turn to the Abrahamic religions, water plays a central role in Judaism. It appears first in the very creation of the world, as Yahweh separates the waters above from the waters below in order to fashion the earth. Water, it appears, is there at the very beginning, before anything else. Water is also central to the Jewish ritual of using a mikvah. A mikvah is a ritual bath. The bath is used by grooms before their weddings, by some men before Shabbat, and by women after their monthly cycle. It's a place of ritual, of privacy, and of sacredness. Interestingly, while a mikvah can be filled partly by tap water, it must always have some rainwater in it to connect us to the earth and its cycles. Bathing the mikvah is also the last step in conversion. One enters a Gentile, one emerges a Jew. In Christianity, water is not associated with our mother explicitly, and yet implicitly, the association really is there. For it is water that is used to signify a new birth, a spiritual birth performed in the sacrament of baptism. Babies have water trickled over their heads, while adults may head to large bodies of water to immerse themselves and thus rise clean and renewed, born a new person. Baptism is the most universal sacrament in Christianity, the most fundamental of Christian rituals, serving as it does as an initiation into the faith, all performed with the aid of water. In Islam, water also plays a purifying or cleansing role. Here it is not just a one-time ritual, but a daily practice. Before Muslims pray, they engage in a short ritual washing or ablution called wudu, where one uses water to quickly wash face, hands, feet, and even orifices like mouth, nose, and ears. It's done quickly, but it signifies the devotees' need, before engaging with their creator, to cleanse themselves of the impurities of the day, washing hands, but also hopefully washing away anger and pride. And further in Islam, we find something new, and that is that water is integrally tied to the notion of heaven. Heaven in Islam is paradise, a garden that is rich and lush. Islam was founded in the desert, one of those regions that teaches us humans at an almost cellular level just how precious water is. And so what could paradise be to a people constantly fighting its absence, but a place overflowing with water, where the plants are perpetually lush, green, and plentiful? Water here again signifies life and vibrancy. What greater paradise could there be? Let's now move to a different part of the world, to India, where the oldest or indigenous faith tradition is that of Hinduism. Here again, we find the linking of water and feminine, personified in Sarasvati, the goddess of water, as well as that of learning and creativity. But Hinduism does not stop there, for there is also Ganga Mata, the mother Ganges, the great river that nourishes our fields and thus keeps us alive. The Ganges is powerful, alive, and ever present. It carries the potential of life. And yet it is not only life that is associated with the Ganges, but also, ironically, its opposite, death. Hindus often go to the Ganges to scatter the ashes of loved ones. Ashes are usually poured into moving water, but none is more preferred than the waters of Ganga Mata. And here, there's a door actually for something new. If water can be a source for our birth and the place we return to at death, then it starts at some level to become the source of all. And indeed, some Hindu writings have made this very connection, using water as a metaphor for the force behind everything, called Brahman. Brahman is like that quintessential body of water, the ocean, endless, vast, deep, unfathomable, really, and yet at the same time, in everything and everyone. Some Hindu schools of thought contend that we are under a kind of illusion of separateness. You see, we think that we are sort of separate glasses of water, but in truth, we're all merely part of one ocean. As the Chandogya Upanishad says, as rivers flowing east and west merge in the sea and become one with it, forgetting they were ever separate streams, so do all creatures lose their separateness when they merge at last into pure being. And to do that in Hinduism, that is to recognize that your separateness, your ego, is a delusion, and to overcome it is the tradition's very goal. It's actually enlightenment itself. The font of wisdom is thus to become like water, to be those streams letting go of their separation and merging into the ocean. Finally, let me end with one last tradition, one that is honestly not well known in the West, and that is the ancient Chinese tradition of Taoism. Taoism really kind of picks up where Hinduism leaves off, in that the central Taoist text also compares the ultimate, here called the Tao, to water. I want to be clear, it does not do this here or there, but rather relentlessly in its central scripture, the Tao Te Ching. Taoism is a nature religion, and as such, it looks to the natural world for the source of truth, much akin to the spiritual outlook of the indigenous nations of these lands. The Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Siksika often found wisdom in nature. As you watch the seasons change, so it taught you about the seasons of life. As you hunt and work hard to catch your prey, it's not only your food, but your teacher, schooling you, if you will, in patience, in cunning, and perseverance as you work to feed your family. Taoism in China similarly looks to the natural world as a source of great truths, and in watching nature, nothing, it seemed, compared to water. The great Tao is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. It's in water's nature to nourish, and this, the text suggests, is the nature of the founding energy of the universe. I can't diverge here and explain Taoism in some kind of depth, but if just for a shorthand, think of the Force from Star Wars. It's not a being to be prayed to, but an energy that sort of pervades the universe and which one tries to access, to come into harmony with. It's kind of a shorthand for the Tao. And so water here is again a metaphor for oneness and for the source of all things. But then Taoism takes a really distinct turn, unparalleled amongst religious traditions as far as I know. It begins to speak of water, and again, these passages pervade its central text, as a model for ethics. Learning from water will teach you how to live. Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water, yet for dissolving the hard and the inflexible, nothing can surpass it. The soft overcomes the rigid, the gentle overcomes the hard. Everyone knows this is true, but few can put it into practice. Right? Isn't that true? Think of water. Think of the way you can put your pinky finger in it and it will yield to your pinky finger. You watch it in the stream, it yields to every tiny pebble. And yet in the long run, it will carve the Grand Canyon. You can't dig that hole with a backhoe, right? The water is soft, it yields to every little pebble, and yet in the end, it will remove all those rocks. The soft overcomes the hard, the gentle overcomes the rigid. Here's another passage. I've read you the beginning of this before, but I'll give you the whole thing. The supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. It is content with the low places that people disdain. Thus, it is like the Tao. Water here is to teach us about humility, as it occupies the low places. It always falls to the lowest spot, and yet it nourishes all the same. This is a lesson about the Tao that it teaches, namely that humility is not weakness, but actually strength. And we can see this by looking at the water around us, so soft, so yielding, so content with those low places, and yet nourishing every single form of life we will ever encounter. And finally, water becomes a lesson in patience. And this is a hard one for me because patience is not a virtue that comes easily to me. Think of some time that you're angry. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? If you let muddy water alone, it will clear up by itself. Can you remain unmoving until the right action arises by itself? Can we do this in our moments of anger, when our waters are muddied and intense? Can we sit and wait and let the water settle, remain unmoving for a time until the right action rises by itself? Taoism suggests that you can learn a lot from water. I've only touched briefly on these traditions, but we've moved from the indigenous nations of North America to Zoroastrianism and the Abrahamic religions founded in the Middle East, to the traditions of India and China. We've seen that multiple traditions associate water with the feminine, calling it our mother, connecting it sometimes to a goddess, or making obvious connections with births, both physical and spiritual. We've also witnessed how water's necessity for life, for vibrancy of all kinds, has led some traditions to see water as integral to heaven, to paradise itself. We've recounted how water is used to clean, to refresh, to make new, and to help us prepare for something important. And we've seen both Hinduism and Taoism equate water with the very source of the universe due to its ubiquity, its centrality to life, and because of the obvious cognitive connections between the deep, unending, unfathomable sea and our struggle to comprehend the source of our vast universe. And finally, we find water serving as a teacher for moral and wise living, a life that sees strength and softness, a life that values humility and that teaches patience by letting things settle when our own waters are muddy and agitated. As we leave today, let us think of water as our mother, our source, our tether to life. Let us ponder its depths and see what it has to teach us about patience and softness. We might drink to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. That was beautiful and a great reminder to yield. So thank you for joining us. We hope that you will come back next year on more than one occasion to share different topics with us. And I'm going to practice yielding to however the time flows tonight. Thank you for the next slide. I just want to take a brief moment to talk about advocacy. That is so crucial to ensuring, once again, that faith-based organizations raise our faithful voices. You'll see some photos here from various events over the years with leaders in the movement. FCG is a member of the Climate Action Network, which in Canada is a coalition of more than 100 organizations across the country that are focused on their mandate to promote the climate movement as a whole rather than the interests of any one organization. For the Love of Creation is an ecumenical national initiative, that brings together faith bodies and faith-based organizations in Canada under a unified banner to mobilize education, reflection, action, and advocacy for climate justice. GreenFaith International Network, Faith in the Common Good, is a founding partner along with 18 other partners in countries around the world who have come together to once again show the power of this movement, of this faith-based movement within the climate environment. So if we could have the next slide, please. I would like to introduce Fletcher Harper, who is the executive director of GreenFaith, based in, well, Fletcher is based in New Jersey. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Fletcher.
Great to see you, and thanks for the invitation.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
And I wanted, if you all who are here tonight don't know how special Michelle is, pay more attention, because we just love working with her in the international network that we're all developing together. And she's been a real gem and such a thoughtful, articulate, experienced person to think about how to address these issues in a genuinely multi-faith kind of way. I wanted to say just a couple of words about a global multi-religious action called Faiths for Climate Justice that the International Network is coordinating and supporting. It's coming up soon, this Sunday and Monday. On Sunday, around the world, people will be gathering at their mosques, their temples, their churches, their places of prayer and worship. They will be sounding the alarm about the climate emergency. They will be making clear their commitment to speaking out publicly about the urgent need to address these issues in a way that doesn't just scratch the surface, but that really is transformative. The network about 7 or 8 months ago put together a collection of faith-based demands about what needs to happen on the climate crisis. And they are not halfway solutions. The network called for an end to new fossil fuel projects. And we were heartened when a couple of months after the network did that, the International Energy Agency came out and said exactly the same thing, which helped us when we had gotten responses from people saying, oh, this is just unrealistic. And our counter was the choices between what many may think is realistic and the future of the planet. The other kinds of commitments: an end to deforestation, respect and protection for Indigenous rights, a warm welcome for climate refugees, generous loss and damage, climate reparations from wealthy countries to those climate vulnerable nations, and so on. And this global action on Sunday and Monday is going to be a chance for people around the world to stand up and align with those values. We have over 400 actions taking place in over 40 countries. On the island of Fiji, or the island nation of Fiji, 4 churches are going to be unfurling large banners calling for an end to new fossil fuel projects, calling on governments and asset managers to end their support for climate destruction. In London, interfaith leaders will be delivering a set of climate demands to Prime Minister Boris Johnson's residence at 10 Downing Street. And then later in the evening, projecting those demands onto the Houses of Parliament. In New York City, Jewish youth leaders are going to be blockading the entrance to BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager and the world's largest investor in fossil fuels, calling on BlackRock to end its investment in industries that are destroying the planet. In Jakarta, Indonesia, at the largest mosque in Southeast Asia, Muslim leaders will unfurl a banner calling on the Indonesian government to stop its support for new coal plant development. And the Catholic cathedral right across the street is going to unfurl a banner calling on the Indonesian government to support a surge in renewable energy. And you get the sense these actions are cascading around the planet. We're excited about the actions that are happening in Canada. It's not too late. If you want to sign up, you can go, as you see, to faithsforclimatejustice.org. There are some great do-it-yourself banner and sign toolkits. Register in action, become part of this global uprising. And many, many thanks again to Faith and the Common Good. Congratulations on 20 years. Thank you for sharing, Michelle, and your particular Canadian charism of kindness and of thoughtfulness and of openness with the rest of the world. And thanks for the opportunity to be together tonight.
Thank you for joining us, Fletcher. I'm delighted that you were able to be here. I just want to let everybody know that Beatrice is sharing in the chat various links to connect with Faith for Climate Justice internationally, as well as nationally. I have the next slide, please. Well, we just have a couple of slides left. This is just a reminder of the resources that FCG has developed over the years. Most of these are free, everything from the Energy Star Action Workbook for congregations, the Do-It-Yourself Faith Building Energy Audit. We have numerous case studies and of course the Green Rule poster and study guide that we're actually in the process of updating, and we'll be issuing a new poster towards the end of the year, maybe the beginning of the year. Next slide, please. So thank you all. Thank you all to the speakers tonight, our founders, our volunteers, our team, our staff, our partners, all of the extraordinary people that have contributed to this network. Tom spoke earlier about one of the things that's really great about this network is how we are nimble, how we have grown organically. It's extraordinary to me what this network has been able to accomplish in 20 years. So what we're also inviting you to do tonight to celebrate our 20th anniversary is to donate $20 to celebrate the 20th year. And of course, if you want to give us more, we'll take it to continue developing these programs and continuing to build resilient and sustainable Canadian communities. In our last slide before we move into the formal AGM is we're inviting you to go back to menti.com and enter the code that Beatrice is going to add to the chat, 66881781. And now that you have been immersed in what's been happening over the last 20 years, do you have another word that you would use to describe faith in the common good? Or would you still use the same word? We invite you just to take a minute or so and do that. And Shanique will show us on the screen what everyone is adding. While that's happening, I want to especially thank our core team. That includes Shanique and Elise and Beatrice, who have been instrumental in working with me to put this evening together. I'm so grateful for all of you, for all of the extraordinary people who continue to work with us, who are committed to finding funding for new programming. And I'm feeling very now exceptionally grateful. Oh, and inspired is what I was going to say, actually. That's the biggest word that is showing up there now. Inspiring, committed, motivational, energy, hopeful, faithful, amazing, purposeful, change bringers. Oh, I like that. Resilient, uplifting, committed, purposeful, I think I said. Thank you. Thank you all for being a part of this network. This is what we have done together. This is what we've all created together. So thank you. Acknowledge yourself for your participation in what we've created. Before we go into the formal part of the AGM, we're going to share with you a timeline. It'll give everyone, we'll have it running for about, let's say 5 minutes. It's 7 o'clock Eastern time now. At 7:05, we will come back for the AGM. Just give everyone a 5-minute break to get some water, to stretch your legs, and then we will be back for the AGM. Thank you all for being here this evening.